From the Middle is proud to be a founding member of the Odd Pods Media Network. Hello, everybody. Welcome to From the Middle, episode number 136. We are three middle-class guys living in the middle of America in the middle chapters of our lives with a point of view that is somewhere in the middle. If you are new to us, hello and welcome. Howdy, even. We're glad to have you. Stick around and check out what we're all about. This is probably a good episode for you to get into for the first time because we are all over the map, which is something that happens with regularity here. We're talking about a giant hairball. Yeah, Ohio's proud of that one. We're talking about how to parent your kids through the world of anime. We talk a little bit about Nashville. We're talking about the workforce shortage. And then, of course, we share some streaming, which is heavy on Harry Potter this time around. So stick around. We hope you enjoy it. Cue the music.
Oh, for the love.
Sorry, just clearing my Mountain Dew hole.
I got my phone hole cleaned today.
That's where you keep it?
You're so cerebral and you're so developed and evolved. From the Middle after dark over here.
Have you guys been to our YouTube page recently? Like, do you regularly watch our own videos?
No.
I don't watch the videos. I'm there weekly.
You're there. That's true. You're uploading.
I'm in there. But
have you guys looked at our most popular mid-bit video lately?
I haven't looked at it, but I know what it is.
Our most popular video, by the way, episode is the episode with stand-up comedian Kellen Erskine, which for a long time was our most viewed video until one of our mid-bits found overnight success somehow relative to the rest of our page. Corey, you remember we discussed you guys going to the Berlin, Ohio, the treehouse, right?
Yeah, we're going again in February. Yeah.
Well, great. Polish up your camera for a new video. People seem to love it. That for whatever reason, that video on our page, which now all of you must go watch again and add some more views, is over 10 or 11,000 views at this point. I think it's like
I remember like not too long ago when you were all excited telling us that it had like 800.
Yeah. Like 2 weeks ago. And I think some Russian travel website has apparently like, that's not true. I'm making this part up, but some Russian travel website must have like linked to it or something like, check out these, amazing American tree houses. And it's just Corey giving a guided tour of this, it's not like an Amish treehouse company is advertising a YouTube video on a big billboard outside of their business, right? So like, it's great. We've had some very nice comments in other languages I've tried to translate and respond to. So much like the Netflix show or movie Famous in France, is that what it was called? It was about a comedian popular in France. We're famous in Russia, maybe, for our mid-bit videos. If you don't know what mid-bits are, go ahead and hop on over to our YouTube channel and subscribe.
Apparently they're on average the most popular thing we do.
By far and away.
Yeah.
We are not YouTubers, but we do post additional bonus content to YouTube in two forms outside of our episodes, which if you want to watch us, you can go watch our episodes there. We post mid-bit videos, which is like bonus content behind the scenes,
Vlogs.
like little stuff. Yeah, little vlogs. It's not, it's not this like super edited, whatever. It's just stuff we throw up there, that we've talked about on the podcast. And then our tangents episodes. Tangents are things that maybe we don't want to talk for an hour on a podcast episode about Boba Fett or Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So we'll record a long form sort of discussion around one specific topic and post that. Well, we've got a particular mid-bit video that's incredibly popular that we were just talking about. So go subscribe to our channel and don't miss incredibly popular YouTube internet sensational content.
And if you can find out what it is we did to make that video, if you have any ideas, let us know. I think that this is the moment where From the Middle pivots to
Oh, we lost
And
Kendall.
we become like a resort review podcast, and we start asking people for money to send us places. I think that's what we need to do now.
I mean, the best thing that we've done for ourselves is come up with a name so generic that we can use it for anything.
That's right. That's right.
From the middle of your part of the world next week on the Mid Pod.
From the Middle Destinations.
I love it. That's a whole new kind of content we don't even have yet, but we will.
Speaking of destinations and travel points of interest, we had a Midler from Cologne, Germany, message us, and the only word in the message is "really?" ? Apparently, Ohio is trending as reasons why you should visit Ohio because Haas, the Ohio human hairball, is now officially the world's largest ball of hair.
Well,
so I'm going to share that on screen if you're on YouTube. So apparently,
he's wearing a cowboy hat.
So apparently, there's this guy, Steve Warden, who has been cutting hair for a very long time. And little by little, he has been sweeping the floor into a little chute that he cut into the floor, and he's been gluing the chunks of hair over time. And now there's a giant ball made of human DNA that you can visit. Guinness got so excited about it that they did a big push to benefit charity for people to add to the ball of hair. And during their December 31st New Year's Eve celebration, we're going to drop it slowly on a forklift to act as the New Year's ball in Times Square that is made of Swarovski, not Swarovski crystal, the crystal from Ireland that is blanking right now. Anyway, what are your thoughts on that, guys?
Look, I'm excited when people from outside of Ohio, next time they ask how we like to celebrate New Year's in the state. And we drop giant hairballs with forklifts in warehouses.
Not just any giant hairball.
Not just any.
The world's largest and creepiest hairball.
World's largest. It's very gross, and I'm gagging looking at it. So, I don't know how much longer I can take it.
All right, Waterford Crystal. Sorry to my Irish family members who are upset that I couldn't think of the name. Waterford Crystal is what the New Year's Eve ball is comprised of. Anyway, yeah, I thought that was also quite humorous.
That was great. Thank you for sharing. I also got photo messages. I forgot to share them with you guys from another listener and Midler fan, Scott, who happened to be at the Wizarding World of Harry Potter and sent some photos like a "wish you were here, thinking of you" type. No, you'd probably love this kind of thing. It was very nice. Thank you for sending the photos. If you don't know what that is, just Google it. I forgot to share the photos, but you can Google it and see what it's like. Very cool. I said, thank you so much. Have an extra butterbeer for me. And the response I got was literally have one in my hand. So
that's cool.
It was very nice. And I ironically had literally 10 or 15 minutes earlier had just finished the Harry Potter 20th anniversary reunion special on HBO. And so it was funny, the timing, with the people traveling and somebody having sent that right at the same time. So good timing. Thanks, Scott.
I think we might get into what we're streaming towards the end of the episode, as we are wont to do. But how great was that reunion special? All the feels. That was really nice. If you haven't checked it out, there's a wonderful reunion. And by the way, the opening shots of that are as good, if not better, than the films that they went back and redid, like stage and set photography of some of the scenes of Diagon Alley and Hogwarts and all this stuff.
Yeah, I want to talk more about it. But Kendall, have you and your family seen all of the Harry Potter films?
Nothing.
None?
I've
None of the above?
consumed nothing of Harry Potter.
We'll talk about that when we do some streaming stuff, but I agree, incredibly well put together. And honestly, if you're just a fan of behind the scenes content but don't care to watch the movies, it's still interesting. They filmed for 10 years on these films. And so that's a lot of commitment. If you're not on a regular sitcom or something. But anyways, very cool.
We'll get into that later. Speaking of geek culture, I have a parenting question for you guys, and it's a little bit serious. So Lily, my oldest, who is a fan of the show, turned 15. I can't believe I have a 15-year-old.
Yeah, dude.
So she's a beautiful, wonderful, awesome, fun young lady and is becoming cooler and cooler every day. But I am very concerned because her mother and I discovered that she has been watching anime. And I'm very concerned because I don't want her to become a weird... how am I going to navigate this tightrope? The type, the sort of weird.
Tell me, what do you mean? Elaborate. Lots of detail.
Some geek culture is okay. Okay, so I went to college with some very unique individuals who were big fans of anime.
Art school. You went to art school.
Right, yeah. Makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like half serious, half joking question. How do I prevent her from becoming a weird anime girl? Like wearing cat ears and stuff in public.
Healthy mix of sports and showers, I think, goes a long way.
Yeah. Healthy mix of sports and showers. Monitor the shade of lipstick she buys. Nothing black.
Mm-hmm.
I've recently seen a thing where just putting black lipstick on like the top lip or just like on the bottom lip. I don't know which one. And that looks pretty interesting.
Oh. Yeah.
So
I'm half joking. But yes, she's a smart girl and she won't do that. I promise. And I jokingly texted her that like, hey, you promise you won't become, because she did actually ask which shows were acceptable for her to watch. Parenting note, there's a very slippery slope between anime and some very dark corners of the internet. So just monitor what forms of anime your children are watching. There are some that are very wholesome and cute and fun. And then there are some where it gets really adult real fast. And there's like a subtext of certain themes that you might not want to expose your kids to too soon. But we pre-approved the show and it's all fine. But I did jokingly text her like, hey, promise you won't become one of those weird anime girls, because dressing up like a Star Wars character is perfectly fine. But there are some things you need to be wary of.
Yeah, but the Star Wars people aren't doing it like all the time, right? They're not like like going to Mickey D's with their friends dressed like Star Wars characters on a regular basis, right?
Right. That's true.
Right.
You can even do both now because you have Star Wars Visions on Disney Plus, which is anime Star Wars. And so
there you go. So this is the anime era. Do you guys remember the Adult Swim days? Yeah. We were like college-ish age or something like that.
Yeah.
And that's where like Futurama and Family Guy and Aqua Teen, Hunger Force.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, that was one of the very first stories we talked about on this podcast when Sherry introduced her new boyfriend, Corey, to her father as the kid who watches adult cartoons.
Yeah, that's her. So there was an anime show called, a popular one, Vash the Stampede, that I got into for a while.
Yeah.
And that was my first and really only anime world that I was ever all that interested in. But even that was kind of on accident. Like it was on before or after something else I was interested in. So
yeah.
And like you said, there's such a wide variety. Like a lot of especially parents our age or older will have heard of very common shows like Pokemon, Dragon Ball or Dragon Ball Z, Some of those are anime that are super popular that everyone has heard of or seen or knows the characters, but there's all different kinds. And yeah, you're not kidding. That she'll be fine. If anyone is ready to guide her through that conversation, her dad that went to art school is ready to guide her through those conversations.
There you
so
go.
she's gonna be just fine. Yeah,
I thought teeing it up like we found weed between her mattress was a good way to.
Yeah. It's appropriate. And either way, if any of the three of us raises a kid who ends up being a real life anime object, my money would be on you. So be on the art guy.
Yep. Speaking of art and children, here's a question of how do you respond to? So, Corey, you and Sherry and the kiddos got my kiddo a little. Melissa and Doug, they make those kind of nicer kids toys, and it was like a little butterfly wood box that came with paints and like glue sparkle markers and all that. Thanks for that, by the way, the messy toy. But it's this like little butterfly shape that's like a jewelry box with a little lid. And so my kiddo, who's not quite 4, is obviously excited to get a paint and glue and all that. And you'll have to give me some of your tips coming from the art world. So we give her, we get it all set up. She's at the kitchen table. There's the mat underneath all the paints and the stuff. So it's like she can go to town. And she dips the brush into the paint and she's holding onto the butterfly thing. And one brush right in the middle of the inside of the bottom of this little butterfly container. One brush is barely complete, and she looks up to me and goes, "How's it look?" And there's the part of me that doesn't even know how to like sweetly reply to children. I just go, "Dude, you did one stroke with the brush. Like, call me when you're done with this thing. You've painted the whole thing." I don't have a better answer for kids when they do this kind of stuff. Not even done with one paint stroke. How does it look? I don't know. Do you guys have a better answer for that next time?
Yeah, some modern artists have made very good livings doing just that or less. And previous guests would argue that is still art. And so that's fine.
She did end up finishing it, but I just didn't know how to respond to literally a half of a brush stroke.
I'm not sure, sweetie. Keep going. Keep working on it. What else can you do?
Keep going. Or maybe just start praising mechanics. That's a really nice line.
That's a really nice stroke that you did there. Keep going. What else can you do?
Yeah.
All right. I'll keep that in mind for next time.
I love that. I'm glad you like the glitter.
Yeah. Yeah. It didn't get everywhere. We loved it too. It was really nice.
Kendall, speaking of travel and interesting destinations, you just got back from a big trip.
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear about your outing and your excursion, your family adventure.
So we had mentioned that sort of the big Christmas gift for our kids was that we were flying to Nashville, which is really cool. Sounds extravagant, but the reality is the only thing we ended up having to pay for was the car rental, because we've had pent up miles and things on credit cards and some cash in the bank at Southwest that we haven't used anything in 2 years. And so we got to take them really on their first trip like that, which was so much fun. It was so cool. I love my family. I love Nashville, by the way. It's one of the very few places where it was like, if you have an excuse to pick up and move there, would you? And I probably wouldn't think about it too hard. But no, it was good. It was great. We got there early on Monday, and left late on Friday. And there was a pool in the hotel, and that was the most popular attraction for the kids. There were times that we had to drag them away from the hotel, reminding them, hey, we could have just stayed in a hotel in Columbus. We're in Nashville. Let's do Nashville things. And so we took them to the zoo. Amy has a couple of friends who live in Nashville. She went to Vanderbilt. and did residency there and stuff. She spent the better part of 10 years living there. So it was really great. Now, when we landed on Monday, one thing that was peculiar to her was that there was snow on the ground. And the kids were all excited that there was snow on the ground in Nashville. We had just left Ohio where it was like 40 degrees. And now we're in Nashville and there's snow on the ground. And which was odd. And we told the kids, like, don't get used to it. Like, it's going to be gone by morning. And indeed it was. But then by, Wednesday night, it snowed. You would think the most it's ever snowed at one time in Nashville, which is like 4 or 5 inches of snow. And so we're experiencing that on Thursday while it's snowing. And the city of Nashville, like, absolutely shuts down. When I say shuts down, I mean shuts down. We walked to lunch in the snow to like the only place within walking distance that was open. And it was us and like another couple who were at that Joe's Crab Shack. And they had, from what I could see, exactly one server. My guess is they had one guy in the kitchen. And that was their story. But that was like late morning, and that was about when the snow was finishing up. And so we're thinking from Ohio, like, this was like 4 or 5 inches of snow. Like, they're going to have this taken care of by dinner. No, not the case. So we get out, we're trying to, like, we can't get anything delivered for dinner. We don't want to walk anymore. And so we're driving around, and like the roads are absolutely horrible, which I understand. I understand Nashville isn't used to seeing this kind of snow. They don't have the infrastructure that we do to deal with it in the amount of time that we do. In Columbus, we get 4 or 5 inches of snow. Everything's fine. Like, nobody's even late to work for that. But driving around, and we wanted to try to find like a hot chicken place, and none of those kinds of places, or none of like the nicer family-ish restaurants were kind of open at all. None of the Nashville-ish sorts of places were open. So then we're just starting to think, okay, how about we just like find like a Chili's or an Applebee's or something? Like, those kinds of places are a little bit more reliable. Driving around, no, they're not open either. And now, granted, at this point, like, it had stopped snowing like at like 6 hours ago.
Yeah. This is day 3 that you're there.
Yeah. And so then we're like, all right, fine. We'll just go to like Mickey D's or something. No, can't find an open McDonald's, can't find an open Taco Bell. Nothing is open. We end up going back to the hotel, which has kind of like a low key ish kind of restaurant. It's not a formal restaurant like what a lot of hotels have. And the bartender there at the hotel was working as the bartender, the server, and the cook. One guy. Kitchen, bar, dining room, one guy. And he was only there. He called in earlier in the day to call off, and they had bribed him, telling him that he could stay there. And so that's the only reason that he was there. So we ate probably microwaved cheeseburgers.
I can tell you from having lived even in Louisville, obviously a bit more north than Nashville, Louisville, Kentucky. Mm-hmm. I think the city of Louisville budgets for about a half a dumpster of salt for the winter for the entire city. Because when we lived down there, we lived there for a little over a year. It snowed, I don't know, 1.5 inches, 2 inches. I was shut down for work for 2 or 3 days because of that. Like 1.5 inches to 2 inches. And it was so cold, none of it melted. It didn't get any worse. It just didn't melt. And they clearly didn't have enough salt to do anything but like 2 roads. Yeah. So it just was what it was. It's like, I guess nobody's going anywhere, which is anyone from Wisconsin or Minnesota or Canada is laughing at us Ohioans, right? But from our point of view, it's like, why do you just not have snow or salt ready? Just go salt things and it's fine. They just don't even budget for it. It's just they don't need it.
I mean, I understand. I can understand that part, right? It's kind of like the 30-year flood situation, right? It's like, it's going to happen sometimes, but it doesn't make sense for us to spend the money on the infrastructure to deal with it every year. Like, that's just a waste of taxpayer dollars. And I would agree. But the next day, now, again, this was Thursday morning was when all the snow happened. It was done by the end of lunchtime on Thursday. Friday, we decided to get up in the morning and drive over to like the Opryland area where the Grand Ole Opry is. And there's a shopping mall there and a movie theater and other stuff. So we're on freeway. We're in downtown roads to get to the freeway. Everything is fine. Roads are perfectly fine. And there's more traffic than there was the day before. Looks promising. We pull up to that Opryland area. The shopping mall is still closed. The Grand Ole Opry is still closed. I pull up the Grand Ole Opry's website, and the website just says, out of an abundance of caution, we will be closed on Friday. It was just simply cold on Friday. Like, the roads were fine. And the only, so we couldn't go to the shopping mall. That was closed. The entire thing was closed. The theater was closed. Grand Ole Opry was closed. The only thing I can figure at that point, like, roads were no longer an issue, but I just felt like the collective psyche of the city of Nashville just noped and stayed home. like because they hadn't taken a collective breath yet to try to figure out what just happened. And like, I could just like picture everybody just like putting one foot out the door. Like, was it okay? What do I do? You know what? It's Friday. Let's just take this off. We'll get back to it on Monday. Is what. So, I mean, there is the Opryland Hotel, which is a Gaylord hotel. If anybody knows what I'm talking about there. Beautiful, massive indoor atrium of a place. They're a hotel, right? So they're open because there's people there. And so thankfully we were able to spend the rest of the day on Friday there, which ended up being a really sweet experience at that place. But
it is super nice. I've stayed there before, and I have some questions about your travel and any potential dining experiences. But let's take a quick break and hear from one of our friends in the Odd Pods Media Network.
Hey, I'm Pantsless Aaron.
This is Stevie.
And I'm Augie.
And we are BFYTW, a podcast all about playing games and having fun. Our games are usually based on British panel shows and game shows, but we'll play anything that captures our attention and imagination. Why? It's right there in the title.
You'll never guess what the F stands for.
All right, welcome back. Kendall is telling us about his trip to Nashville. It sounds like you guys had a great time, but of course, I'm going to be the person that asks about, did you have any food that you need to share about, or any travel stories like to and from that you need to share?
So food, so South Broadway is the area of Nashville that everybody sees on TV. It's the famous place with the bars and music at every bar. And we didn't want to take the kids there, like in the evening hours where it's hopping for obvious reasons. But we decided like an early evening, get there before dinner time kind of thing would be good. And we're there. We're trying to figure out food and where we're going to eat while we're over there. And we stumble upon a place that it's called the Merchant or Merchants. And we go in. It's just before dinner hour. It's like 5:45. And what we didn't know was that there's two restaurants in here, and they're both Merchants. They have like the pub, which gives you like the American pub food kind of stuff. And then they have a steakhouse on the second floor. My wife loves steak more than the average human being, which is a wonderful thing for me. But so when we go in and they're like, oh, I assume you guys want the pub or the steakhouse is upstairs. And my wife is just like, steak is what we want. They're like, okay, well, that doesn't open for another 15 minutes. Are you okay with that? Yeah, we're okay with that. So we end up going upstairs. We're carting along 3 kids with us. We go into the steakhouse, and when you walk in and sit down, they put a menu in front of you. It's like, oh, this is that kind of steakhouse. So we fed our family for a cool like $250.
Oh, nice.
Which
but listen, you were just glad to be at a place that had a workforce.
Yeah.
That there was human beings there that could do jobs to serve you food.
Yeah. So we had a very expensive steak dinner, a very delicious steak dinner. But
well, just look at this. All the food that you would have eaten at other mid to nice restaurants, you blew your wad in one place and you ate at gas stations the rest of the day.
I would have loved to eat at gas stations. Unfortunately, that was not the case. Hey, there's a place called the Grilled Cheesery.
Ooh, I love
it. Which is as amazing as it sounds.
Nice.
I put together my own little grilled cheese sandwich of pepper jack cheese and jalapenos and smoked jalapenos, by the way.
Did you find that the travel, like, are people even more casual out there than you'd expect them to be, like traveling and going into restaurants, or are people like actually trying again because they're excited to go out and do things like dressing up, wearing nice clothes?
I mean, I feel like I haven't seen dressing up for travel in a long time.
And I don't mean people in a suit. I mean people not in sweatpants.
Well, that's been my general experience over the last decade of air travel is like people like there's always lots of people who are like wearing their pajamas on purpose.
Yeah.
Even before COVID, right?
Me at this point, dressing up to travel is like jeans and a well-fitted t-shirt or polo with like tennis shoes. That's now like dressing up for a flight or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
It seemed pretty normal from that respect. And then like downtown was still, there's not a whole lot of people there this time of year in Nashville, or at least not as many as there typically would be like during the summer. But it's still one kind of odd thing about Nashville is it's like I feel like everybody in the Midwest, every female in the Midwest who's been to 4 or 5 bridal showers or bachelorette parties is the word, has done one in Nashville. It's like bachelorette party USA in Nashville. There's like whole businesses down there like dedicated to that.
Wow.
But so there's still those folks who schedule that out in advance and everything. And so they're still dressing the way they would dress, which is one of the reasons we wouldn't want to take our kids there in the evening.
Right. How did it feel to be out though? I mean, just like being in an airport and traveling, like did it just feel nice to be out on an adventure?
Good and a little bit weird because we're heading into like we're in the midst of Omicron right now.
Yeah.
And so we ended up accidentally traveling in what ended up being the middle of a surge.
Yeah.
So there is that, and the plane to Nashville was absolutely full. The one back was not. There was like 40 people on a 177 person flight on the way back. So that was real nice. But I mean, it was fine. I mean, I think we all came back healthy. Nobody found the COVID there. Tennessee's numbers are actually better than Ohio's are. So the only risk would have been on the plane, or the only risk that was substantially higher than what we have here would have been during the travel portion. But that all went great. The travel was fine.
Good. Well, glad you got out, and it wasn't probably the ideal time to see the sights or visit points of interest because of the weather that they are clearly unprepared for. I'm curious though. Now I'm going to have to see what size of hairballs Tennessee has to see if there's anything for the next trip. It kind of brings me like you describing what it was like to try to go to any sort of business where there's no workforce, where there's already a workforce shortage. Even if the weather had been perfect, I've just observed so many situations lately, and agreed, they might only be a mild inconvenience to me who's trying to go to a restaurant or have my kids taken to school on a bus. But where is the workforce, you guys? Like, I'm seriously asking, what happened? Like, even with COVID, there's still got to be jobs available. I told my daughter, Lily, who we just talked about earlier, who just turned 15, hey, you could basically go get any job you want anywhere right now. My kids can't even get bus drivers to take them to school because they have no drivers. What is happening?
Well, for schools, in particular, I know a big part of the problem is just when somebody gets COVID or a couple people get COVID, like they're out for a week. And
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a day here or a day there. It's weeks at a time now.
Yeah.
So that's a big problem for schools. The rest of it, yeah, I don't quite get it either. Somebody could, like, right now, your daughter could go to Target and get a job with zero experience and make $17 an hour.
Yep.
What was your name, Lily? Did you want to be the assistant store manager?
Yeah.
We can get you 60 hours a week in a 401k.
Yeah. So, I mean, the workforce is certainly hiring, and they're starting to pay out the nose to get people to come in. I mean, every fast food place is offering signing bonuses,
But where did it go? I know we've talked about this before, and I know we've had hypotheses, but like, where did it go? Like, we used to think maybe that was this unemployment thing that ended in summer of last year. Like, I literally don't understand what's happening. It's just like we lost a third of the population to the bubonic plague.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think what you're finding is anyone that was a lot of people that could work but maybe don't need to as part of a household, or are retired but might typically work, or are kids but might typically work. A lot of those people, if they don't feel safe, they're not going to go work anywhere.
Yeah.
None of those groups of people have to work right now.
Yeah.
And so it makes sense. Like, think about a lot of the bus drivers that you knew, probably a lot of spouses that weren't the primary income winners that we had when we were younger, or retirees that would come in and would just do that part-time. A lot of the fast food and restaurant are kids. Like, if they don't have to work and they can hunker down at home with their parents. I think it's just a lot of the people that are kind of optionally work just aren't.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the people that were in really tough jobs that we were like, you're the heroes at the grocery stores and the restaurants keeping the economy going. Everyone has always said, like, if you think those jobs are so bad and don't pay well, then go find a better one. They're like, well, right now I can, so I'm going to.
Yeah, that's
a good point.
That was my theory for a long time. Like, take a place like a fast food restaurant where, let's say, you had a very overqualified 40-year-old who was the shift lead or the manager, took this opportunity in the voids in other positions that they may want, took that opportunity to go take that advancement or career move opportunity, leaving a big void at the more high turnover jobs, not at the bottom, but you know what I mean? And it left this big void. And so now you're seeing, like, I know like I've said, this is first world problems, and I'm mostly joking about what is a mild inconvenience to me. But like, our Starbucks is closing at like 11 in the morning and is just done for the day. Cause they're like, we do the morning coffee rush and we got nothing for the rest of the day. So they just put a big placard in the drive-thru and they're like, sorry. And the inside is a storage room with just boxes and nobody goes inside anyway.
Yeah. And no way, this doesn't have to be, like a political thing at all, but like, statistically, most fast food and retail workers that are full-time are 30. The average age is like 30s. Like, if you look at those roles, so these aren't, you can say that all those jobs are for kids, and maybe some of the part-time 15-20 hour a week roles at fast food places and retail are that. But statistically, the vast majority of the people who are in those positions are adults past the education, sort of traditional educational period. And so I think a lot of positions are opening up everywhere else, and they're aggressively hiring with better pay and benefits and bonuses. And I think people are taking advantage of it being if you're looking for a new job, it's your market. And so I think that's where people are going.
That would explain why like Luigi's Pizza in Nashville is closed while the Merchant Steakhouse is open, because that's what all of the servers were like, I can go serve over there now.
Mm-hmm.
Bye.
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to get tips at Chili's or Applebee's, or you're going to go take tips at the nicest, highest end restaurant, if you even want to stay in that industry, which you don't even have to do right now. If you don't want, if you want to change industries, now's the time to do it, because they're not going to require experience like they might traditionally do.
Sherry, who has had some experience in the restaurant industry as both a server, a bartender, a shift leader, and then ultimately in corporate at a food franchise, is like, if I wanted to, now would be the time to go get a server job. We had a family member tell us the other day that they know someone who works in like a Applebee's type, just like, average restaurant, made $1,100 in tips in a day, just like serving at like a average, restaurant.
And can you imagine going and doing that, and not doing the bare minimum, not just showing up with a neutral, expressionless face and completing the job as minimally required? Can you imagine doing that right now, where people feel like there's such a huge drop in service, and being awesome at it? Like super outgoing and gracious and funny, and thank you so much for coming. It's so good to see you. Oh, come back. Can you imagine being really good at that right now? Like you'd make a killing if you wanted. Pick the restaurant you want to work at and go.
I can speak directly to that, because Lily asked to go to Olive Garden for her birthday, and our server was everything you just described. She was on top of it. My father-in-law has very specific food needs, and so he asked for a very specific, I need you to strain the broth off and then add steaming water, and then like he needed very specific things. She was on it. She came to our table multiple times. She did such a stellar job. I mean, her tip from like, it was just so refreshing. Now, was the restroom clean? Not at all. Did we wait a long time when there was only half of the restaurant was available, or only half of the restaurant was seated? Yes. But the service we got was incredible, and it was just so refreshing. We were like, take our money.
Here's all the tip money from the places that we've gone to already, and we've decided to give it all to you. Was she a sit down at the table kind of server?
Almost. Like she was almost family by the end. We were like, we're so appreciative.
No, that's a real question. So how do you guys feel about, so when Dillon was describing and miming the, like, oh, come on back and see us kind of server, like I'm picturing the guy who like turns his hat backwards and pulls up a chair and sits down. So what are we all having, guys? I'm picturing that server. And I actually, maybe we've talked about this before, but I actually am curious how people feel about that server.
We have not talked about that server before. That's a great question.
I like that server, by the way. I feel like that server could show up even in the most formal occasions in a restaurant, and I'd be happy to have the sit down at the table with you server.
I'm going to say generally okay, but big asterisks. There's a lot of variables that go into that. Like how loud is he? How much chummy phrasing is he or she using?
Oh yeah.
Is it a noisy restaurant? Like already, what kind of food is it? Have we already waited a really long time? Has he been like that the whole time, or did he just show up and he's kind of loud? Like, does it progress over time and get more like that? Like, does he start normal, and then by the end he comes back and we've had some great banter about college football, and then he's like, all right, champ, what do you want for dessert? Is it like that? Like, there's so many variables. Look, at the end of the day, it's like, I think we've talked about this before. You go through the drive-thru, and my wife and I did this not long ago, and we went through Taco Bell's drive-thru, and the person is like doing some kind of monotone singing thing, talking to us the whole time, like, hello and welcome to Taco Bell. And Bree's like, does that bother you? And I'm like, they're just trying to get through their day. Like, so my overarching opinion is like, whatever helps those people get through their day. If they're still being kind and they're doing their job well, I mostly don't care. But there are so many variables that can sway me in any moment. I don't know, Corey.
Yeah, I love that. I'm not going to be able to top that. That was the perfect answer. But is it Office Space where Jennifer Aniston's coworker waiter guy is extra corny and he's got all the pieces of flair? Not the manager, but like the guy she works alongside.
The coworker, whoever it is. Yeah.
That's who I'm thinking about when you describe the guy that like turned his hat around. And then the only thing I was going to say, like, does he squat next to the table so his head is at level with the table in your chest? Or did he pull up an available chair next to you? Or is it a booth? Those are my variables. But overall, I appreciate the effort to like make it a little more personable and fun. But like, again, Dylan's answer about the variables was very Sebastian Maniscalco and perfect.
Yes.
Well, and so part of the reason why I asked about that whole thing, there's a lot of variables. I wanted to know about the casualness of travel. So because it reminded me of something. The other day, I got up, go to every morning pretty much is get up, bathroom, go to kitchen, turn on Keurig, open the kitchen blinds so I can kind of see outside. And I'm getting the Keurig ready and my stuff ready. And I look out and I happen to see a car pull in to the end of my neighbor's driveway. It doesn't pull all the way up by the house, just at the end. So I assume somebody's dropping something off or whatever, kind of paying attention, mostly not really. I don't care. But I happen to look down, and by the time I look back up, this person I don't recognize is already up on the porch, or up to my neighbor's porch. So, okay. So I look back down again. I look back up. At this point, he's bending over to take what I can see is take a photo of something. So some kind of delivery service, and they're doing the photo of the package that they've dropped off or whatever they've left. However, it's not just his butt crack that's showing. It's the entirety of his butt has slipped out of, I'm guessing he's got sweatpants or like athletic pants on. And look, as a big guy, I know that the only way that happens is because the front band is sandwiched between his belly and like his legs, which has allowed the rest of the fabric. I'm not exaggerating to be funny. Like it was just crack. Literally, if this is the round part all the way to the bottom, all sticking out right at me through the window, because this is across the street at my neighbor's house. And I'm thinking now I'm processing delivery person staring at the entirety of his butt crack. And the world really has gotten more casual. And and that was just that moment where I thought this might be what Kendall's dealing with going through the airport. Like this wasn't a little bit of a plumber showing a little crack, bending over. The dude was taking a picture and the whole world could see.
I tell you what, so here's an interesting experience. When we were heading through security the first time, I got pulled aside, selected to be patted down, and which I was under the impression that I got chosen to get patted down because the person who's doing the patting down was very obviously a trainee, and they were like, "Oh, okay, big guys are a little different, so he's got to experience some big guys."
There's more nooks and crannies. There's more nooks and crannies.
There's nooks and crannies big guys have that the rest of the population don't. So he's got to get in. All
right, we started with hot chick. That's the obvious go-to. Now you got to experience what a little big guy's like.
What a big dude is. And like it was a guy who like he he basically knew what he was doing, but he was like missing bits and pieces. And there was a trainer there standing next to him, kind of like walking him through how to pat me down. And like he had to go back and like do something over again.
Yeah.
And oh my goodness,
he pulled out the little flashlight and the rubber gloves. You got to dig a little harder with these big guys.
Oh man. And it was just like when I first go over there and I stand on the mat where they tell me to stand, like the first thing that I heard was he was about to get started and the guy stopped him. The trainer stopped him and said, "Nope, you're supposed to ask him about a private room first." And so I'll go, "Oh," and then he turns to me. He's like, "So is this okay to do this out here, or would you like us to take you to a private room?" And from there, I'm like, "Oh boy." Here is fine. And so there I am getting patted down like 3 times by a trainee with another dude just like standing right next to us and like giving him tips and pointers. And so
I would have asked if the private room
fun.
had bagels and coffee.
Yeah, I was going to say, take me to dinner first. And Dillon, you could have taken a page out of his book and offered that same service to the delivery guy next door and given him a prostate. He was already halfway there. The hard part was already done.
Zero exaggeration. It was, I don't understand. Frankly, it was cold. I'm not sure how he didn't feel it and stop first, but.
That's a perfect
probably
segue.
Figured that surely like the guy across the street's not just like standing there staring at me. Like I should be able to get this done and get out of here with nobody really knows.
Look, I've learned my lesson and those blinds are staying shut in the morning. I tell you.
That's the perfect segue to a new Instagram handle that I just discovered. So passenger shaming is a well-known Instagram page where it's flight attendants shaming anonymously passengers doing stupid, inappropriate, bad behavior, bad etiquette type things, putting their bare feet up on the trays, up on the bulkheads, doing weird sleeping arrangements, texting their relatives, "We got COVID. Shh, don't tell anyone. That's why we're coming back now," type thing, things on the planes. Well, they tagged another page recently that I've started following, and it is absolutely hilarious, called Influencers in the Wild. So these people who are social media influencers doing weird TikTok dances or poses, you have to remember there's somebody else watching them do that from another point of view. And so the entire feed is dedicated to those people's posts who are just filming influencers doing dumb stuff in front of fountains and beaches. It is the most, because the TikTok video might look cool when it's set to music and the person is relatively attractive, but they look ridiculous from 20 yards away through some bushes.
I can see that.
It's the best page to just scroll through how ridiculous some of these people look. So anyway, both of your stories made me think of that. It's a good browse if you're bored.
The internet's the best. Well, I think we have to end now. We talked a little bit about what you said. We talked about what we're streaming.
Yes.
And our thoughts on the Harry Potter reunion. And Kendall, your kiddos got to take their Switches with them traveling, which, by the way, how was that?
Word.
And
Great.
did they get to stream anything?
Well, we didn't stream anything, but I tell you what, and on the 2 snowy days that we had, like we totally played Mario Kart in the hotel room. So that was perfect.
Between the indoor pool and the Switches, you guys were
indoor pool, Switch, and there was a chessboard in the lobby that we played on.
Beautiful.
Nice.
So it was still a good time. But streaming, actually, so since we got back, I did watch Don't Look Up on Netflix.
And
that is it's a funny film. I wouldn't say it's a very funny film. It's not hilarious. It is definitely a comedy, but what I appreciate about it is it's such a dark environment that they put all this comedy into, which I appreciate that sort of thing. I do recommend watching it. I'm glad I saw it. The cast is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, it's just a who's who in one film, like on a Netflix film, which, yeah. And I watched today, Jim Gaffigan's new special, Comedy Monster, I think is what it's called.
Yeah.
So I saw that today, which is good. What I appreciate about Jim Gaffigan is that he doesn't change. I feel like all of his specials are like the same thing. It's just different jokes.
Yep.
And so it was just tried and true Jim Gaffigan.
About half of that set was what we saw at Nationwide. So there were a few things he did at Nationwide that aren't in that special. But the Hawaii stuff and whatever, that was the same stuff we got to see live. I'm glad you enjoyed that. But yeah, it's very tried and true Jim Gaffigan. Back to Don't Look Up. That's like a satirical look at how we Americans are ignoring climate change and some science things. I know it's satirical in comedy, but does it feel super heavy-handed? Or
no,
is it like
it doesn't? And that's
Okay.
I appreciate that about it, actually. So I feel like that movie could be viewed in 30 years and nobody's going to understand that it was a political film. So it's
gotcha.
In today's context, yes, you kind of see what they're going for as the overall plot, but it's not blatant, I don't feel.
Yeah. Cool.
I would have enjoyed it much less if that were the case.
Yeah. Not that I don't agree with that science or whatever. Just
right.
If it would have felt like so heavy-handed the whole time, like you were getting bludgeoned over the head with it, it would have been like, all right, we get it.
Yeah, yeah.
Dillon, any more about Harry Potter 20-year reunion, Back to Hogwarts?
Yeah. Because there's not a whole lot I'm watching right now. It's still kind of busy at work. It's slowing down eventually, but we've been rewatching through Ted Lasso season 1 and 2, which we've talked at length about, and it's so good. But the Harry Potter 20th reunion, specifically, my first thought after that was that puts every other reunion I've ever seen to shame from the quality of production standpoint. Like the Friends reunion now in hindsight feels like this cheap TV last minute thrown together kind of thing. And I know it was right as things were opening back up with the pandemic, but like the Harry Potter reunion is far more in line with really high quality behind the scenes footage. Like I've talked about the Lord of the Rings behind the scenes being almost as good as the film, the production value on the behind the scenes and the thoughtfulness they put into it and the topics and the flow of it is incredibly good. And that's how I felt with the Harry Potter film. So it's sort of, these characters sort of walk through the set piece environments back to these interviews, and then it's cutting between different characters, but with the flow of films 1 and 2, films 3 and 4, films 5, 6, 7. And it was so well done. It felt like a really beautiful farewell. I mean, and there's still like the Harry Potter theater show going on, and the Harry Potter, like the Fantastic Beasts films are out right now. But it felt like this really beautiful send-off for the anniversary, and all the fans who've been watching it on streaming it on HBO. Like a really nice send-off of kind of where are they now, and they all do really seem appreciative of their time in the films, and some of the actors who've passed away. Probably most notably Alan Rickman, who've passed away that were part of the franchise since. And again, I honestly, if you're just a fan of that kind of retrospective or behind the scenes, really well done behind the scenes content, you really don't have to have watched the films. In my opinion, to even watch a little bit of it. I just think it's pretty incredible that the three main characters, the three main actors, and it's Rupert Grint, Daniel Radcliffe, and Emma Watson. They were filming these for 10 years, and they were around 9-10 years old when these started.
Yeah.
And that's a huge chunk of their lives. And so to hear it from their point of view, how the adults acted around them at a young age, literally going through puberty through these films, not being in school like normal kids. being adults by the end, and now 20 years after being adults by the end of the films coming out, sort of their thoughts back on the series.
And their struggles throughout, by the way. Like at one point, Emma Watson considered just stopping all of it because it was just becoming too much for her. Just the fame, and when you're given that much fame at such a young age and you don't know how to handle it, and it was really revealing that even her co-stars didn't realize that she was struggling that much. It was her mom who encouraged her to like see it through and finish out the franchise. And in this documentary, it's revealed, and they said, like, we didn't realize you were struggling. We were too, but didn't feel like we knew how to bring it up and talk to one another. We were struggling with the same things, but quietly and alone. And I was like, I got choked up at a few parts. Like, it was just so well done.
Yeah, I remember seeing a study a few years ago, and I think it was one of the Ivy League schools. I don't remember which one, but it was talking about how because of the main, for a more conservative audience, you hear witches and wizards and you go, that's not something I want to let my kids watch. But the study was talking specifically about how if you view it through the lens of sort of J.K. Rowling and, obviously being in Britain, and if we're coming out of World War II, she wouldn't have been that old, but she would have been a child coming out of that as recent history. And a lot of sort of superior genetics, superior, races. And this study was talking about how the kids that were prime age for Harry Potter, that 8, 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old, when those films came out, especially, they're tracking along with a big group of these kids that are now like essentially one of the most empathetic generations of all time in regards to their worldview. Because a big message of the films, it's really talking about how, do you come from a sort of dynastic magical family? Is your family not that way? Are you sort of like lower, they use the what's a slang term in the films called mudblood. Do you come from a family who's not magical at all, but somehow you have those abilities? And talking a lot about like, creating these artificial, we're better than you, our family's better than you, our race is better than you, being essentially one layer removed from the movies really just being about good versus evil, and just tracking these themes over time with these kids. It's just been really interesting. So to hear them to hear the actors hear how much of an impact these films have had on generations of kids now, and to hear that as adults, it was really cool. There was a moment with I knew I'd forget his name, the actor who plays Hagrid, talking about the impact on generations, his grandkids watching it, in the future, whether he would be around or not, the character will live on. And Robbie Coltrane, yeah. And so it was really sweet. It was incredibly well done, and easy to get choked up if you're a fan of the films, but I think anyone could enjoy them. So HBO put together a really, really nice special for the Harry Potter fans.
Well, if you don't have HBO, I have a new Netflix recommendation. I had been hearing about this series for a while, and I cannot recommend it more. It's called Love on the Spectrum on Netflix. It is 2 seasons. A season is only 5 episodes for season 1 and 6 episodes for season 2. It's Australian. It's filmed in Australia about young adults on the autism spectrum with Asperger's and trying to find love, trying to find a significant other. And the beautiful part about it is that dating, in many ways, or at least the way we do it, perhaps, I think everywhere, but certainly here in America, there's a lot of, you're presenting your best self and you're only presenting your best self. And there's a lot that you're keeping hidden, and you might lie or bend the truth to try to impress people with autism. They speak the truth, and they speak exactly what they're thinking. So there's something so wonderfully refreshing about seeing how an autistic person tries to process the concept of finding love. It's so sweet. It's so innocent. I cried multiple times. It's some of the most beautiful television that I've watched in a very long time, and the exact antithesis of things like The Bachelor and The Bachelorette. You've got these wonderful, beautiful people, and there's a coach on there named Jody. She's I believe, sexologist and relationship expert, and she works especially with people with a handicap or that are challenged in some way. And the way that she works with these people, she'll do little illustrations to talk about how a conversation should flow. I emailed her practice to try to get her as a guest on our show, and we'll see what she says. She's one of the most beautiful people. The show, Sherry and I watched it in like 36 hours. I couldn't recommend it more. It's so refreshing. It's so wholesome and warm. And by the way, I love the Australian accent. And so that's just fun to sit and watch for a handful of episodes. But Love on the Spectrum is wonderful. The Matrix Resurrections, don't waste your time. I don't know what I just watched. Yeah, but I could not recommend Love on the Spectrum more. And Kendall, last thing, I wanted to thank you because we didn't share notes necessarily going into our Middies episode 135, where we covered our favorite things of 2021. And I absolutely love the Hardy album.
Oh, do you really?
It's so good, man.
Did I get Corey into a country album?
I'll have you know that the song Unapologetically Country as Hell.
Yes.
My friends, one of the words they would use to describe me would not be country.
Yeah.
But I grew up peripherally to a lot of those things he describes in that song, but it's an anthem to like country living. I'll have you know, I'm singing at the top of my lungs, and I just want to be country when I hear that song. He talks about like spoon scaling fish and having deer blood on your church clothes. And I'm like, that's
I got
me.
blood on my Sunday clothes.
And then
Directions to a honey hole.
Yeah, the titular album A-Rock, or the titular song A-Rock, is just this beautiful song about how the symbol of something made from a rock means something different at phases in your life. And it's a great album. I love his voice. I love his writing. I've listened through it multiple times now. So thanks for that recommendation.
No problem. The song Boots has what is likely one of my favorite musical moments in the past couple of years. It just, there's sometimes there's spots in some songs where like, I don't even care what the whole rest of the song is or sounded like, but like they do something really cool, like at the end of a chorus or at a bridge, that I'm just like, you know what, that was really cool. And it doesn't sound derivative. Like, I don't think I've heard that before, and I really like it.
Yeah.
There's some of that kind of songwriting it in that album, but especially in the song Boots.
Yeah. I'll go back and check that one out. So this has been a fun episode catching up with you guys, and I think we were a master of segues in this episode. It was a lot of fun hanging out. Please do visit our sponsors, both Artius Man for men's grooming, as well as Stello Mints for CBD mints. That's Artius Man, ARTIUSMAN.com. Promo code The Middle at checkout to get 25% off your first order. And then Stello Mints, STELLOMINTS.com. Promo code The Middle at checkout to get 10% off all orders. Dillon just got a big stash of the mint flavor, the peppermint flavor. I need to get me some more matcha. But I love this.
I just got a bunch of Artius Man citrus cedar stuff too. So I'm all loaded up.
Very good.
And if you're on YouTube, go to the about section on our channel, because all those details are right there. The websites, the promo codes, and the discounts, all on our YouTube channel.
All right. Well, it's been a fun one. We'll catch you guys next Wednesday. Episodes drop before you wake up on Wednesday morning. We'll see you guys next time.
Cool.
Auf Wiedersehen.